My name is Dan Axe de Krief, and I'm here today with
Andrew BikeKing 19 Peeper.
Yeah. And we are both former record holders of the fastest motorcycle ride across America. I did mine in 2014 with a time of 33 hours and 10 minutes from San Diego to Jacksonville, Florida. And Andrew, you did yours when and how fast?
I did mine in June of 2022 from Jacksonville to San Diego with a time of 20 hours and 42 minutes.
Yeah, huge improvement over mine. As much as it hurts to say that. But yeah, big improvement though. And we actually got to meet each other in San Antonio while you were coming, I think, on your return trip back to Florida, right?
Right.
Yeah, which went right on I-10, and I am literally a block from I-10. So it was super convenient, kind of cool to be able to meet right after you did that and stuff.
Yes, I was exhausted, but that was that was nice to meet you there.
Yeah, I think you made a comment that you were actually thinking about trying to beat your time on the way back originally, right?
Oh yeah, just one of the most ignorant statements I've ever said in my life. I think because my initial plan when because I wasn't like you, I wasn't planning to ship my bike there or back or anything.
Right.
I was planning to ride both ways. So originally I was planning to okay, I'll just ride over at in 3 or 4 days time initially, and I'll kind of get a lay of the land. I'll make notes of any rough construction spots or heavy police presence. And then I'll try the record attempt on the way back. But then my friend was like, "Oh, well, you should just go for it on your way there. And that way, if you don't set it, you can still maybe set it on your way back." And that's just completely unrealistic. To do a C to C to C on a motorcycle is just insane.
Yeah.
Within the first 5 minutes of the run, I was like, okay, this is one shot deal. I am not doing this again.
I think you'd actually told me that before you left, right? Does that sound? Yeah, because I think my suggestion was, dude, if you don't make it, you need to do it the first time and be done. Trust me on this.
Yeah, little did I know what I was in for.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Well, how'd you get the idea for what generated? Give me a little background on your bikes and stuff, and what your history is.
Yeah, I've been riding for about 16 years now. Okay. Didn't ride much growing up, but always had a fascination with motorcycles. I always thought they were really cool. Always wanted one. And so from the time I got my license to now, I've always had a bike. I didn't even have a car until college, just daily road motorcycles. And me and some of my some good buddies of mine were just over at his house and flipping through YouTube channels and different motorcycle videos and tours and stuff like that, and we came across I believe it was your vinwiki video, and then we watched the old documentary of No Limits, No Regrets.
The movie,
and I was like, whoa, this is cool. I didn't know this is a thing that people kept track of, but I was like, my initial thought was that does not seem like a bike that you want to go across country on.
I heard that a lot.
And so I was like, well, my bike is better for cross country. I was like, and I think I can do it. And people don't understand average speed and all that, and what that accounts to with stops and everything. I think after just kind of running my own numbers of it, and I was like, because I'd already rode from Vegas to Orlando in a day and a half. Pretty hard riding. Sure. Not a record attempt, but pretty straight shot through. And so I felt like I had the physical stamina to do it, and I knew my bike was capable. I wasn't sure if I was capable, but I thought I could be.
Yeah. Oh, and so just for reference, your bike for viewers, your bike is a what?
So I have a 1999 Honda Blackbird 1100.
Right, and I rode a 2010 BMW S1000RR, which is more racy crotch rocket, where yours is more of a sport tour, I guess you'd call it, or
Yeah, I think it's technically classified as a sport touring bike.
right. Yeah, that's why you made the comment about the crotch rocket not being the wisest move for it. But okay, so yeah, so you got the bike, you got the idea now.
Right. Yeah. And so so I just kind of started. I was like, man, I think seems possible. So started looking into what would make sense to do to the bike to try and do it. Fuel cell was like one of the bigger things of
Right.
adding that on and seeing what kind of range I could get, and then re-gearing it for changing out the the gears for to re-gear it for higher top end speed, and
Right.
new chain, new tires, and then just let's see, what else did we have. I put it like a chain oiler
Right,
on
I
it,
remember
like
seeing that.
it's usually used for dirt bikes, but
Yeah.
it worked for this because I didn't think it was a super necessary feature, but it couldn't hurt when you're running a chain for 30 hours nonstop.
Exactly.
Doesn't
Yeah.
so.
There's no, as you know, right? Like there's no instruction manual on how to do this kind of
Nope.
stuff. We're just jumping in. Like for me, in contrast, like again, you got your idea kind of watching some of the stuff I'd done, and I got my idea from Alex Roy, who was, as you may remember,
Right.
he had the car record back in 13 or whatever when I started looking at this, and he'd gone from New York to LA, which is the official, cannonball or traditional
Right.
cannonball run. And I didn't realize that this was a bike thing. Like the only thing I could find was the guy that did a cannonball run in like, I don't know, 82, and it took him 44 hours or something.
Sure.
Right. And, but I read Alex Roy's book and saw his movie, and I'm like, well, same kind of thing, right? Like, well, I could do this, but I want to do it on a bike, right? And that was something different. And then when I was in San Diego, I didn't realize this, because I shipped my bike to San Diego from Texas. And while I was there, I got to meet Gary Orr, who I didn't know, but he'd already done the San Diego to Jacksonville run. And I think you met him while you were out there too, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah. And so it was kind of cool that, his dealership is who was holding my bike for me and let me do all my mods in the shop and stuff and get everything installed. But, he'd gone all but like 150 miles short of the coast. I'm sure he told you this too, with this trailer full of 75 gallons of fuel.
Insane.
And he said he got so close, and then a police officer had somebody pulled over, and they pulled him over because his taillight was flickering on the trailer. And he's like, because he hadn't put a foot down. Like he had not stopped.
That is nuts.
Yeah. And he got so mad that I think he turned and either went south or north and didn't even finish the deal. I think that was 36 hours. Yeah, he didn't actually hit the pitch, but that was, so 36 hours is what my milestone was that I was trying to beat, right? Was the 36 hours to get within 150. So I thought that was kind of my target, if you will. But it's funny. We both get our ideas from somebody that's done it before, but like the Cannonball Run movie probably initiated everybody that's, or the real Brock Yates and that. That's who motivated Ed Bolin and all these guys.
I remember when I think when I was sometime in elementary school, I remember my dad pointing out a newspaper article about someone who had actually done the Cannonball Run, and and that like Guinness wasn't gonna recognize it officially, but he's like, I have all the receipts, I have all, he's like, I have everything. He's like, this is what I did, and we were. My dad and I were just like blown away because he was a limo driver for part of his life, and so he was big into cars and driving. And
cool.
I've driven across the country 19 times, 3 of them on a motorcycle. So I'm big on travel and things like that. So
that's awesome.
It's just always something that I thought was really cool.
Yeah, and I remember my cousin in Colorado reading an article, and I can't remember if it was Road and Track or what, but it was like some guy that they knew through their dad that he'd done one of the Cannonball runs, and, his car had like carbon fiber in the paint to try to scatter the radar and all this stuff. And so, young age, between the Cannonball Run movies, and you see stories like that. And that's where the normal people say that's dumb. And people like us are like, oh, that sounds like a blast.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how much time did you spend prepping your bike? Do you feel like from the time of idea conception, what do you figure you spent prep time, getting
Yeah,
everything ready?
relatively short. I believe it was probably right around 7 or 8 weeks, something like that.
That's it? Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Oh, geez.
it
I spent
was
like 9 months, dude.
right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
7 or 8 weeks.
It all came together relatively quickly. The bike was in already good shape.
Right.
Mechanically, just had to uh, switch bolt a fuel cell onto where the top box goes for the
Right.
luggage,
Did you get that made
and
custom or did you buy that off the shelf?
I bought it off the shelf. Yeah,
Okay. And that was
yeah. It was,
5 gallon extra?
it was an 8-gallon tank.
8. Okay. Yeah, because I'd bought the cylindrical one that was like a 5 gallon that I stuck in the back of mine. And then I think you had a fuel pump in yours though to actually put it to the front, right? Versus I just did
I
a
did,
gravity feed.
yes.
Okay.
Right.
So you had a little bit
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
wiring and stuff.
Yeah, wired in a fuel pump with that, and
Okay.
then yeah, so and so I had about 8 gallons plus the like 5.3 stock tank,
Okay.
so a
That's
little over
pretty
13
good.
gallons. So I ended up getting around 400 miles of range. So I think I had like 7
400.
fuel
Okay.
stops.
Yeah, I think I wanted to say 6, must have been 7 because I had about 350. I figured with mine
Okay.
because I had the 4 and change in the main tank and then the 5 out back. But because the rear one was bigger, and you probably had this too. I just did mine gravity feed, so I had to like a separate key in the tank that I had with a parachute cord to the main key, so I wouldn't lose the second key and have to pop it
Yeah.
up with the throttle lock and let it flow in. But I couldn't dump the full 5 gallons all at once or it would have overflowed. So I had to do it in like 2 shots, in between. But yeah, there's a lot of little things so you didn't do any ergo aids then at all then, right?
No.
Did you have any alternate way of sitting with could you ride with your rear feet on the passenger pegs or anything? Or were you stuck?
I could, yeah, I had those flipped down. Yeah, I saw what you had done with you use like shin guards, right?
Yeah. Pad it. Yeah.
I didn't use those, but yeah, the Blackbird is a little bit more of an upright riding position than the BMW. So
yeah.
I just by the initial riding position and just like constantly trying to stretch, whenever if you're pacing the cop or doing a fuel stop, just stretching your arms and legs and neck and just trying to stay loose. That ended up working well for me.
Okay. Did you have that bike was old enough it wouldn't have cruise on it, did it?
No, it does not have cruise control.
Did you have a throttle lock even or no?
Just a throttle lock, yeah.
You can't, I don't know about you, but I barely could use mine. Just like probably in Louisiana where the cops were lighting up my radar so bad, I'd have cruise on or the throttle lock. But when you're trying to go fast, it's not like everybody at Circuit of the Americas has cruise on 55. You're modulating the whole way.
You totally, right. It's always, you're always modulating it, like you said. So yeah, there's not many stretches where it's just wide open and you can just go.
Yeah, and even then you want to have control just in case a deer jumps out or something and you've got to back it off, that's and you didn't run thermal either, right? Thermal vision?
No thermal or infrared or anything like that. Just myself and my radar detector.
Yeah, that was a surprise. And I think even if I remember right, when I talked to Ed, I don't think Ed had run a thermal either. Like I got the idea from Alex. Roy had been running it. And I originally looked at night vision, like what you'd see in like scopes and stuff, for rifle scopes and stuff. And what somebody pointed out to me is that if you run night vision, then the oncoming headlights will blind you, but thermal gives a more neutral view. Sure. And it's also, like to me, it makes, like law enforcement sitting in the weeds hiding, you can see them and the deer and stuff. But I've hit 3 deer, one on that Aprilia, and I hate to say I'm scared, but to be honest, hitting that center punch and a 7-point buck on a motorcycle opens your eyes. And so,
yeah, no doubt.
So, but thermal vision to me was almost a necessity, and it's surprising to me not everybody runs it. But to be honest, I was a lot more daring before I started hitting deer in my life with animals. Yeah, but
yeah. I remember when I was leaving, when I was still in Florida, I was cruising down and doing like a buck 20 in the left lane, and then there's like 3 deer like 6 feet off the interstate. I'm like,
yeah.
whew.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, don't move.
So have you ever even hit like a raccoon or gator or anything then, or?
No, nothing. I've hit, in my motorcycle lifetime, I have hit a small dog, but that was at low speed in the neighborhood. I remember my friend had told me that he had broken a toe on a small dog like that, and so this little chihuahua looking thing was just running back and forth in the road, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna like swerve and crash myself for this dog, so I'm just gonna lift my feet up and go straight. And yeah, he caught the back tire, unfortunately.
Oh wow. Yeah, I think the Aprilia deer wreck was like after my ride, but I'd hit a raccoon in 10 or 11 out here in the hill country, and even that, like, it just surprised me, how fast an animal appears sometimes like that. And growing up in Iowa, I think I always thought I was really good at seeing the beady eyes lighten up, in the weeds, but
yeah,
that raccoon, and I missed it with the front tire, but it hit the oil cooler and tore all the plastics off the bottom, and I was in a turn, and so after that, that's why I was like, yeah, thermal, I need a thermal for this, just to feel confident about, because I don't know what you hit for top speed, but I was, I hit 165, I think was my max. I think did you hit 160 range, you said, or something too? Or
yeah, I think 155 or somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, ideally you just drive through the critters at that point.
Waze I found to be a really good resource, and not for like animals on the road, but for debris on the road, like tires or 2x4s or stuff like that. People are really good at reporting like debris and stuff. And so even though you wouldn't know what lane it's in, you just still be looking for, okay, there's something in the road that someone said there's here, and usually it was there. So that helped me a lot, and just be actively looking for something in the road that might be in my lane.
Okay. And see, I tried Waze when I did my ride, and at that time in 14, Waze wouldn't let you program a trip more than 1,000 miles, if I remember right. And since the trip was 2,400, I was like, well, I can't do that. So fortunately, it's basically I-10 the whole way. But and then my SIM card overheated and burned up in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And and normally I know the way to get on I-10 to Jacksonville from Louisiana, but the idea is when you get so you get in that dream parallel to reality. And my biggest fear was I'm going to get out from a gas stop and I'm going to go back west and not know it. That was the biggest fear, because you're half asleep and stuff. But yeah, having Waze the whole way, that's a good point. If they show debris in that gives you at least a heads up.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you hit traffic at all to speak of then, like Houston even, or anything, or?
All of Texas was most of Texas was pretty smooth, I guess. For Houston, San Antonio were very smooth. And then once I got out of San Antonio, I was really excited to get outside of San Antonio for all the wide open country that it is.
Yeah.
And then so I'm going like 140, 150, and then there's an SUV with lights on top of it, and so slow down. It's state trooper, and I paced this guy for 3 hours across Texas.
In West Texas.
Where's this guy going? Like, what do you patrol? Like, what's your area? All of Texas? Like,
3 hours. That's brutal.
He was at least going 85 instead of 70, but I was just like,
that's killer.
Oh man, it was just a heartbreak. I mean, thankfully I was still on a good pace to still beat the record. If not, I might have just said, screw it. You know what? If you want to catch me, you can catch me. Like, let's go.
Wow. So that would have been heading toward like around El Paso, perhaps. Or?
Right. Yeah. And then El Paso was awful.
Was it?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I got through there. I didn't think it was a peak rush hour time. It was around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, but man, that was came to a standstill a couple of times, and
Really?
with that, with all just the border right there and everybody coming in and out,
Yeah.
it was pretty bad.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't. So, me going the other way, I left San Diego around, I think I took like a short nap in the afternoon for like a couple hours and
Hmm.
sleep schedule. I'd try to go to kind of a nocturnal sleep schedule as much as possible. And I tried to take one little nap. And then I took off around probably 5 or so from Dog Beach, somewhere in that range. And so, I got to blast through the desert, which is the high speed, like you said, West
Right.
Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. And I was
Hmm.
screaming through that area. But then San Antonio wasn't bad for me, but it was Houston is the first place where I really saw traffic on a Sunday, at noon or whatever it was. And
Yeah.
that's where I really got slowed down and had to put foot down. And then all through Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama, all that was radar just constantly going off. And
Uh-huh.
it's like, well, I could go a little faster, but geez, if you get pulled over, and I don't know about
Right.
you, I was carrying a sidearm too, and I have a permit, but I
Sure.
don't need any more reasons to get questioned.
Yeah, yeah, and more time and more paperwork and
Exactly.
everything.
Yep.
So
Not going to
yeah.
speed it up. But by the time I got to West Florida, it was getting in dark already. So I was able to burn through Florida in the middle. It was like a Sunday night. And then
Yeah.
I think I arrived at Jack's Beach at like 5 a.m. on Monday or something like that, I think.
Okay.
And then, so where did you get 2 nights? Well, you only had really closer to 24 than a 36. So you basically had one cycle of a day. And just
Right.
a little,
And I'm gaining the 3 hours instead of losing the 3 hours
right,
like you
right.
were.
That's
So
right.
yes, yeah. So I left on a Thursday night and got there on a Friday night.
Oh, that's right. You didn't
So
do a full weekend. You did a weekdays even
yeah,
too.
just for work,
Oh, that's
reasons.
right.
I had to, yeah. Saturday and Sunday would be best for traffic reasons, but yeah, for work I just had to. I left on a Thursday and got there on Friday, so I left at like eight something, a little past 8 p.m. on Thursday, a little bit before sunset, and
Okay.
then I got there around 10:30 or 10:40 on Friday night.
Okay. That worked out well. Okay. Gotcha. And then because then so it was a Saturday you came back through here that we met for lunch then?
I believe it was on Monday. I spent a couple days to recover. I didn't
Oh,
do a
okay.
straight shot back,
Yeah.
but yeah.
What was your worst pain point by the time you got to the end of the ride?
I'd probably say my forehead from just the wind pressure just on top of my helmet.
Really?
Uh, my fingers and wrists were kind of a little bit sore. I think my thumbs and stuff were chafed, but my back and my butt were fine. My
Okay.
legs weren't that bad, but yeah, I had a headache for like the next day because of my helmet.
Really? Is your bike such that you're above the shield and maybe you're catching more wind force than what I do on a
Usually,
bullet?
yeah, which would be
Oh,
something that I would change if I do it again. I would get like a bigger touring windshield that covers you more.
gotcha. And I think I've gone to trying to remember if I had it by that point, but I know it. I now have like on the Ape too, a Corsa, I think they call it. It's not quite a double bubble, but it's a little higher. And even
Uh-huh.
though it sits higher, and I do like Texas mile stuff with my bike too. And so being higher, you think, well, there's more drag, but it's actually better because it guides the wind up and over your helmet. So I get a nice
Sure.
streamline for race type stuff. But when you're on those kind of rides, you got to sit up and down, and your legs, you probably don't have as much bend in your knee as what I was all crammed up as.
Right. Yeah, no.
Yeah, my biggest pain point was the thumb, just from holding
Uh-huh.
that stupid throttle.
Yeah,
I had to
yeah.
eat,
That was probably my number two
yeah,
was
that was brutal.
thumbs.
My thumb was useless I thought I had permanent nerve damage because 2 weeks later
I
I
remember you
still
talking
just
about that. Yeah.
couldn't even, I was like, you're supposed to, eat like you're holding a pencil with a fork, and I was
Uh-huh.
having to ham fist it for 2, 3 weeks. But then did you do like condom catheter too and stuff, or
I did, which I found out to be almost completely useless. Kind of like you. I
what?
remember you had like problems like like going on while riding on the bike.
Yeah,
Same
just
thing. I was
couldn't
like,
let it
in that
release.
position, it's impossible. Like it's
I
physically
know.
impossible in that position.
I know. I was
So
surprised.
and by the time you stand up, you're like, oh, I gotta go because it's all released now, and it's like, so I think finally in like Arizona or something, I was like, okay, I need to go to the bathroom, and it was like noon at a busy gas station. I was like, I'm just gonna go in.
Oh, you didn't have to go in from
So
Florida all the way to Arizona?
So, if I did, I don't remember it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think I made it, what was it, 700 miles before I had to use it the first time. And you're right, like on it, you just can't because your balls are up against the tank and your pressure, but because I remember holding, like mine was taped to the bottom of the boot to kind of aim it out. And I was trying to hold my foot out so that I wouldn't blow on the exhaust can and then bake it on there. And I just couldn't release. But when I first stopped, and you feel that warm fluid, because I had to kind of like loop it up and down, right? And when I first felt the fluid, and I'm like, oh, tell me I didn't spring a leak. And finally, I see it running out the toe. I'm like, and it was acid yellow, but I'm like, okay, it worked. Oh, thank goodness. Yeah. Did you have like a Camelback, I assume, or something for fluids too?
I did. Yeah, I think I had a 3-liter Camelback and was just went with straight Gatorade, and then I think I used I know how to refill it at least once or twice, I think. So
did you?
I drank. Yeah. So I was doing a pretty decent job.
You did better than I did. Yeah.
Hydrated with that.
Yeah, I got from San Diego all the way to East Texas, and I finally stopped and I drank. I'd only drank like barely over a liter of fluid, and I was like, "Oh, this is not going to go well."
Yeah, not for drinking, but that was one of probably the thing in all of my prep and everything for it. The thing that surprised me the most about how you were able to still have a successful run was in what you chose to like eat and just like for sustenance, like on the actual ride. I was like, you ate a Slim Jim for the entire way across the country? Like, dude, come on. Like, that's it. Like,
I was wearing an adult diaper and I did not want to have to use it. And I'm like, and I ate MREs for several days before trying to plug my system up, but I hadn't eaten even since like that morning that I left. So, when I didn't leave till 5, I was already without food for several hours. And it was like East Texas. And it was only because I just felt my brain fading from just the blood sugar was too low. And so I got that one Slim Jim and ate that. And that's all I had until like breakfast, the morning in Florida.
Right.
Yeah. But so you didn't use any you didn't have any caffeine in your Camelback?
No, not in my Camelback. No, but I had several like of those like Gatorade like energy chews and Cliff replenished energy chews, Cliff bars, and a few like meal replacement shakes.
Did you just eat those at the gas stops then, I guess?
Right. Yeah. Oh well, I was trying to eat while riding, and then I did like meal replacement shakes at like 1 or 2 gas stops.
Okay.
But I failed to pre-open any of my snacks before the ride, so I didn't realize how difficult opening things one-handed would be because I have to have one hand on the throttle, and so I'm just fumbling with this thing doing 100 miles an hour, just trying to like get this stupid thing to come out, and then I remember I was working on my first Cliff bar. It took me like 10 minutes to get this thing open. I finally got a good tear in it, and so then I'm like pressing it against the tank with my hand, and then it slips down and onto the road and it's gone. I'm like,
no.
So, and I had my pockets and everything were stuffed full of them. So my next fuel stop, I just ripped open every single one of them. I was like, all right, we're not doing this again.
Smart. Yeah, that's good. Did you have much for mechanical, like even your gadgets or cameras or issues or anything on the ride, or?
Some cameras issues with I had the 360 was mounted on a stick out in front of the bike, and so that was controlled via remote control, and so sometimes that remote wouldn't work, would be kind of glitchy, and so but I was like, well, it's not important to the bike. The bike still goes fast, so
Exactly.
we'll keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. I had that SIM card issue. And then one of the stops, I can't remember what happened, but like as I was leaving, well, one of them early, my gas tank was coming loose because mine was using like the rear seat mount kind of. And it started like the little catch that keeps the seat there is the same mechanism I used on the tank mount. And it was like barely hanging on because it's made for like a little travel pack, not 5 gallons of fuel. And it was starting to come loose. And I'm like, oh, that's all I need is for that thing to go flying off. And so every stop, you know, I mean, you know, putting gas in doesn't take that long. It's all the checking everything out to make sure shit isn't falling around and falling off of that. But then the phone, one of the things I took off and I was like, wait a minute, where's my phone? And the phone was hanging by its charging cord because when I turned the bars, the way I had it cradled in there was too sharp of a turn and it knocked it out of its cradle. But fortunately, it was hanging on by its cord. But,
oh, man.
Yeah. So there's,
one of my second phone, not my main phone that I was using, but my second phone that I was using, that overheated and shut off like in Texas.
Oh, wow.
Because it just got so hot because it was like 100+ degrees.
Yeah. That's right. You did right in the middle of the summer, which surprised me. I was like, oh, dude, June, that's a hot time of year to do this, man. So I did mine in April. But yeah, did you have a rubber case on it too? Like an otter case or something?
I did. Yes. Yeah.
So one thing I wondered is I also had a case on because I had like a dual lock on the back of it to stick to the platform, the mount I had. And I kind of wondered if maybe that wasn't the right approach, if I would have been better having like something that gripped on friction wise on the side that let air flow, because I'm sure that rubber case is what, you know,
sure, it kind of acts as an insulator to it. Right.
Exactly.
On top of the battery. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't you have something happen when you were going back home through Louisiana? Didn't something break on your, I thought you texted saying something had happened.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't make it all the way back to Florida without incident. Back in New Orleans, just outside of New Orleans, my bike just started going bonkers. Like my speedo, my tack would just flip all the way up and all the way down.
Oh.
So I was like, okay, well, something's off. So I was able to get off an exit and to a parking lot safely, but then it just died. And when it started up from there, so got it towed to a shop, and it was the rectifier had gone out on it, which is a common thing on these on the Blackbirds. For like there's an upgrade for it because they're known to fail.
Isn't any motorcycle fail rectifier? Isn't that like required to be a motorcycle? The regulators got to fail.
And turns out they may not like running 20 electronics across the country twice, you know?
Yeah, that's what because like on the sport bikes, I kind of laugh because they're always behind the engine. Like on the Harleys, some of them, we'd have them on the front because you get them in the airflow and at least it keeps them a little cooler, because I was constantly replacing those on the choppers and Harleys too. Yeah. So it's like, but you know, sport bikes, you got to be aerodynamic and put them back where they packaging wise and stuff.
Right.
Okay. So
that ended up being the issue with that. So, and then I wasn't even able to get one there either. And I think a week or two later, I was planning another motorcycle trip with some buddies in North Carolina. Oh, yeah. So I actually ended up just leaving my bike there in New Orleans, and I flew back to Central Florida. And then I took my other bike and did the ride with them up in the Carolinas. And then on my way back, took the trailer and then went back to New Orleans and picked up my bike from the shop.
Wow.
And then
that's what you ended up doing. Were you up there at the Dragon or?
That area. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I crashed up there once too. That was my first major crash on a sport bike. That old Aprilia, the original one I had. I was less than a year out of heart surgery, and I'd never done much of a ride for, you know, sport bike wise and stuff. And my buddy was going up there. So rode 8 hours from Jacksonville to Franklin, I think is the town down by Asheville kind of.
Right.
And threw her stuff in the hotel, and literally 40 minutes later, the Aprilia had slid. My fault, obviously, but it slid and dropped down a mountainside about 20 feet and ended up against a tree. But we were able to save it and rode it all weekend and back home. But that's mountain riding is a whole different animal from riding up and down A1A looking at the water.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you do ride, like, sounds like you ride not only long tours, but you ride like mountain roads too, and twisties and stuff. And
yeah. During the summer, I do tours around the Dragon and
cool.
the area. I'm not that far away from
True.
from there. So yeah. I really enjoy the mountains and the twisties and things. So
you probably you don't take the Blackbird for that. I assume your other bike is a little bit more nimble, or
yeah, just kind of depends. I'll switch it up. I enjoy both of them for both very different reasons. But
right.
The Blackbird is surprisingly more nimble than you would think, and I added a 6mm spacer between the and under the rear shock.
Yeah.
And that makes like a world of difference in the
6
handling.
millimeters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
and
like,
it didn't jack with your handling.
No, like it improve. Well, it jacks in that it improves. Like it's a common spacer.
So going up 6 means you're decreasing your rake angle to make it more responsive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting, because so that Aprilia of mine, the 1100 RF I've got now, I didn't have the Fat Boy springs in the front. I just had small guy springs in it. And I was trying to get the suspension set right. And in doing so, I ended up raising the rear 3 millimeters, I think. And it was enough that when I was in a turn doing, you get over 110 or 20, and it just started feeling really uncomfortable back there. So I ended up having to just bite the bullet and put the big springs in, and then got it set back. But that's why I was surprised, because even 3 mils to me was, terrible for me. So, but that helped. Okay. So yeah, that's cool to be right with those roads in your backyard, though.
Yeah, beautiful, it definitely roads. Is. It's right in the foothills of the Smokies, pretty much. So.
Oh, okay, great. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, like Texas here, we have the hill country, which is a lot of fun. It's you basically just have to fight the deer. Like I said, I've got 3 killed. I've told my buddy he was going hunting for deer, and his Craigslist shotgun failed on him, and he threw the shotgun at the deer. And I said, geez, I've killed 3 deer in 3 years with vehicles. I'm doing better than you with your shotgun. But so we both out, and your was 20, 21. When did you do it?
22.
22. Okay. Yeah, it was right after my surgery. That's right. And then just last year in the fall, I think it was, Jacob ended up beating yours by, and I know it'll pain you to say it, but let's hear it.
17 measly minutes.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, I remember when I first found out you'd beat my record, right? Because Greg Grice, I think is his name, is the one who beat me originally in 18, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't even know about that. And then I think you'd reached out to Ed Bolin while I was in process of scheduling my interview with him after the movie came out. And he told me that. And I just remember, like, it didn't hit me till that night. And I'm like, wow, I'm not the best in the world anymore. Like, this kind of hurts, and you get used to it, obviously. But, for you, I don't think, I mean, how did it hit you? Because it's, like I said, it didn't great at first either.
Yeah. I would imagine I felt more than you did, because I was listening to like some podcasts and stuff that you've done since then, and people ask like, oh wow, that was a decent like improvement on that. Like that's how I would have, like 2 hours would have felt way better. I'm like, oh wow, like great run, dude. Like that's pretty impressive. 17 minutes on 2,400 miles. Are you kidding me? Like that's like a tie. Like, do you know all the variables have to go right to have like 17 minutes? Like,
I know it's I know. Even like just the fact that you got stuck behind that trooper for 3 hours,
I know.
that was those 17 minutes, if not way more, right?
Oh, if not way more.
Yeah. I mean, we can sit and complain all we want, but the fact is that we did what we did, and it took a lot of luck. I mean, we both planned, we both know our books, but I mean, there's so much that can go wrong.
So
Flat tires,
stuff.
arrested, animal. I mean, you name it. So the fact that we did what we did is still pretty cool in itself, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Absolutely.
now it's, I guess I'm at the point, you know, like it stung at first when I heard you'd beat it, but then, you know, you get by, and then I realized like Greg had done it, and then of course the Jacob, and now it's kind of like, well, it's kind of cool, you know, because like you look at someone like Ed Bolin and Alex Roy that had done this thing with cars years ago, and it's kind of cool because that was like, it's on the resume, right? Like they were the baddest in the world, but now they go on to do other things, right? And you know, like Ed's got his vinwiki projects and stuff, and you know, Alex doing his thing and stuff. So you figure out ways to like, well, it was cool, you know, and it's in my resume, but you can't be the Al Bundy and keep talking to our Uncle Rico types either. You got to move on. But it was, you know, without a doubt for me, it's the coolest thing I will ever do on this planet is that ride.
Oh, absolutely.
You know? So.
Yeah. Just just to have the just for somebody to be able to do it, and just to have the mental fortitude to accomplish a ride like that is like puts you in a very rare class of people.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
just the desire to do
it. Ridiculous. Yeah.
Even just like who would want to do it, right? And it's that's why to me it was so cool to meet Gary Orr the first time, because here's someone else that understands it. Like everybody I talked to was, you know, just like, dude, you know, like I wish you wouldn't do this, and this is stupid and whatever else. And you know, like my buddy said one day leaving the bar right before I did the ride, and he goes, I tell you to be careful, but I know better. And I said, man, this ends one of three ways: dead, jail, or legend. And he just is like, oh.
I love that.
Yeah, it was, it's pretty cool, but you're right. And it's hard to, like, you can't imagine, and I could never have explained it to you but despite trying, like, here's the taxing of the physical, and here's the mental. Like you don't know until you get into it.
You don't know until you're there. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you said like when you started, that's where it kind of hits you, right? Like right when you started is where it kind of sunk in. You doing?
Yeah. Like I think I was like 10 or 12 minutes or something behind what I told people I was going to, what time I was going to start at.
Yeah.
Just because I was kind of freaking out. I was like, man, like this is crazy, dude. Like I'm not stopping until I get to the other ocean. Like, golly, this is really intimidating. But I was like, I was like, everything's here. People are waiting on me. Like I have to go. And then, yeah, like, but even before I even got in the interstate, I was like, I have to maintain this level 10 intensity for all the, like, one shot. That's it. That's all we got.
Yeah. And you made it. That's what counts, right?
But like I explained it to people, like I was like, most people couldn't play a video game for 30 hours straight, and you know, I'm riding a motorcycle.
and they have a reset button. We didn't, you know.
Right? Yeah.
You get one life, no resets. That's it. Yeah. Did you kind of hit that? I mean, your time wasn't as long as mine, but I'm assuming towards the end, did you start to get that dual reality of the kind of dream with real life thing too, or were you able to avoid that altogether?
Yeah, cognitively, I think I was still pretty good, but I was exhausted, and I envied you starting in San Diego, because when I was coming down to San Diego and coming through those mountains and everything, there's like 20 and 30 mile an hour winds. I was doing well below the speed limit at that point. I was getting passed by cars and semis. I was
really.
I was just crawling through there. I was just trying to keep it on the road. It was like I mean, I know how to corner with the tank on the back, but it was like I had lost that ability, because I was like, I'm just trying to guide it down the mountains and just get there. And I was like, you know, and when I got to Phoenix, or outside of Phoenix anyway, it was looking pretty good, because every hour I'd get an update with what my average pace was, and what I needed to average to continue to break the record. And when I got outside of Phoenix, I only needed to average like 74. And so I was like, okay, this is like looking pretty good. And so I wasn't worried about going slower through that period. But yeah, that was like it's not a very technical ride at all, but the parts that it is right there in San Diego on hour 26 of riding. It's just like
brutal.
It's brutal.
Yeah, I know the exact mountains you're talking about, and I hated them for a different reason, because I just started and I was afraid that I ended up with a sinus infection because I was feeling kind of stuffed up out there and stuff. And sure enough, when I hit those mountains and the elevation changed, that pressure in my sinuses was just like needles in my head. And I was like, oh, this is brutal. So yeah, I know the mountains. I hated them as well. Did you lane split when you were coming into California then, like in San Diego?
Filtering up at lights and stuff. But
okay.
Yeah. What there wasn't a whole lot of traffic at that time, thankfully.
Right.
So, but yeah, I was. Yeah, I remember you were doing that on your way out of there because there's quite a decent amount of traffic at that time.
Yeah, Saturday evening, and I'd never done lane splitting before, and I'm like, I don't know about this, but like, it made sense. I mean, it saved me a ton of time just burning through traffic.
And cars are pretty good out there, to their credit, for moving over. In general, they're pretty aware of you.
Yeah, I think they're just used to it. You know, if you tried that down here, you'd probably get run over. But you got to have it. But I don't know, it still makes me nervous every time I see people doing it out there, just because I'm not used to it. But I will admit, maybe once in a while when there's like here, patrolman told me that it's not specifically forbidden to lane split in the law book, but if you do it and you're being a jerk about it, they can get you for like reckless driving or whatever. You know, they kind of have the ability to jack with you on it. But if it's a stoplight and the bike's getting hot sitting in traffic, I'll burn up to the front once in a while, but try not to too much. Cool, man. So you got any big plans to do anything next, or? And if you do, and you're keeping them to yourself, I understand. I understand that.
Yeah, man. I don't think I can. I don't think I can go to my grave peacefully knowing that 17 minutes is figuring out there on a Harley versus a Honda Superbike.
You know what's funny though is. You're griping about a Harley beating you, and when I heard a Honda beat me, I got mad. I'm like, beat by a Honda? So welcome to my pain.
So I think I don't think I'm done with cross country records and things as of yet. I'd always wanted to do it on a scooter, just to do it, not just to have it done. I mean, it's physically it'll be way easier because it's way more comfortable and upright. And the
scooter, what kind of scooter are you talking about? Like a little moped type looking thing, or something different than what I'm imagining?
Like I'll send you a picture of it. Honda Silverring 600.
Okay, 600. So it's not terribly small.
No. So it's Honda's biggest scooter that they make, and so if you're familiar with Suzuki Bergman is like a similar type scooter, but so it's scooter, no gears or anything, just a CVT transmission, but it's fuel injected and liquid cooled, and it'll do 115, and so
you think 115 is enough to get up to take advantage of those big spots?
I assume because that's the guy Jacob did it on a Harley Ultra Limited, which only does about that one.
Well, that's probably true. Are you doing this just to make him mad? Because if he loses to a scooter, that's gonna like hurt. He'll be the most hurt of all three of us if he gets beat by a scooter, I bet.
So I definitely have like a much narrow window for error. I can't just do like if something happened on the black, like if I was behind time on the Blackbird, I could just do 150 to catch up. But on this, like if things don't go right, then I can only do like 105, 110. So I have a narrower window, but I would try like optimize like fewer fuel stops and now that I've done it, like I know all the like little tiny things that you can
Yeah.
optimize during it and to make up for time.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try it on that with and then somewhere down the road, nowhere necessarily set in the future, but someday I would at least like to try the actual cannonball route from
The New
New
York
York
to
to
LA
LA.
run. What is
It'd be cool to do.
Yeah, just for the experience, I agree. What did that? It was a guy from Dallas, I think, just bought a bike, did it, and then sold the bike, right?
Yeah, on an
And-
FJR. Yeah, Alex Jones has
okay,
and he did it with an average speed of like 85 miles an hour. Of like his time was like 31 or 32, something like that.
is what
Like a
32
pretty good
hours or so?
pace.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I couldn't. I mean, I remember seeing something about that. That he wasn't like, it didn't seem like really a bike guy. Just said, "Hey, I think I can do this," and bought the bike.
I
And
know,
did it,
yeah, yeah.
sold it.
Seemingly, yeah. I remember reading an article, and the title of the article was "Seemingly Ordinary Man Sets Cannonball Record."
Yeah, isn't that something? Kind of like the Tim Ferriss approach. I'm just going to research what it takes, go do it, and then I'm done with it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I've also read about like the ride from like Seattle, like Northwest, all the way down to Key West. You
Right.
know,
Yeah. From the most northern point. Yeah. Yeah. Across the country.
the,
I've read about that. That is a ridiculous. The record for that is insane.
is
Like,
it?
yeah. Yeah. Some I forget his name. He passed away not all that long ago, but just
Oh,
some. I believe it was on an I believe that was also on an FJR, but he yeah he did crazy long distance, and I think he averaged like 71 miles an hour or something
for that. So
crazy.
did he not
Crazy.
sleep at all then, or
Like I guess not, or maybe did like power naps or something. But he
wow,
did like mass for that long of a distance and across
mountains
that
and
road in
everything.
Alaska that's not paved. Like,
Oh, you're talking about the one all from Alaska. I was talking about Continental.
oh yeah,
Or
I'm
like,
talking about Alaska. Yeah.
okay, yeah. So that one I remember reading about too. That was, yeah, I agree. That one was insane. There's one like the continuous Continental or whatever they call it from
Oh sure,
Washington
sure.
to Key West. But you're right that
Right.
I read
Yeah,
something about that
yeah,
Alaska
most northern
one.
point of the continental U.S. The most
Yeah,
southern point. Okay, yeah, I know what
but
you're
you're
talking
right.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, they said that Alaska one, like there's places where you're going through, it's not even paved roads, I
Right.
guess. And I'm like,
Yeah.
geez, yeah, I remember reading that same probably article, and it was like that, you know, and
Yeah.
at this point, what I almost have thought of doing is instead of spending 33 hours, maybe like now that I'm retired as of last week, take 33 days and just hit a bunch, you know, like just cities across, you know, and just
Sure.
because one thing that I've tended to do in my life all over the years is bam, bam, bam. How fast can I get to where I'm going? Right. Like, and I
Uh-huh.
sometimes forget to enjoy the journey and just look at the destination.
Right.
And now I'm having to kind of look at things differently. And maybe it's like, well, maybe a slow ride that I just enjoy things along the way wouldn't be so bad either. So I don't know.
Mm,
It's, I guess, you know, figure out what you want and you do it. You can always
yeah,
do
that's
it.
it. Yeah, that's kind of the beauty of this whole thing. You know, there's no rules, there's no exact regulations. Get from point A to point B, and the rest is
Yep,
up to you. So like I
exactly.
tell people, it's it's like one large problem of trying to solve how can I get from this point to this point the fastest. But inside of that, there's 258 small little problems that you have to deal with, and nobody knows about them.
Exactly. Yep. That's what makes it all fun. It's awesome, man. Well,
Yeah.
cool. Well, again, congratulations. I know you're sour about the last deal,
Yeah.
but hey, it happens to all of us, right? Sooner or
Yeah,
later.
records are made to be broken. So
Yep, exactly. But you know, if nothing else, we can say we were the best in the world at the times we had it, though, and that's pretty
right,
cool.
yeah. Still a select few people.
Awesome.
What about you? You done putting your name in record books?
You know, I don't know if I've debated. I just, for me, I don't see enough. I don't know that I could do enough to beat even like, you know, yours or Jacob's time, either one, because I've thought about like, well, God, you know, you'd have to get like all this gas. I mean, the only thing that I see really being a significant delta is starting to do what Gary Orr tried to do in the first place with a fuel trailer. You know,
Right.
I mean, that's the only way you avoid gas stops is to do something like that. And we both know that's the most significant place to make a difference is killing your gas stops. But short of that, I mean, do you remember what Jacob had for fuel storage extra? Was it 8 total?
Yeah, he had like
extra?
custom made
Right.
fuel bags that fit inside of his saddlebags.
Right. But he had like, weren't they 4 gallons each? So he had 8 plus the 5 or 6 in the front or something. Or
right. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and the mileage, I mean, scoff at Harleys all you want, but even my old 77 FLH that was a big old pig with what 56 horsepower or something pathetic, right? But that thing would get 50 miles a gallon on the highway because I had it geared, and they're so torquey at the low end being a V twin, and they've got that big old heavy flywheel, so they have the momentum. So your mileage is actually pretty good with those things, and I'm sure his being fuel injected, I think, and stuff newer,
right.
They're not the worst choice. They're not, put it this way, they're not as bad of a choice as what you might think inherently, right? I mean, I grew up on them, and I would never use my old shovel head for it because it'd break down 10 miles outside of Jacksonville. But the newer ones, makes sense, and they do have the girth to be able to store the extra fuel, like what he was doing. So
yeah, I agreed.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe I'll just end up getting a bike with a sidecar and throw the dog in and just tour the country and call it good. I don't know yet.
There you go. Yeah, I was in my other research of like, okay, what other like motorcycle records are like feasible?
Yeah.
I came across two. One is significantly more challenging than the other. One is the longest distance traveled in 24 hours on a motorcycle. And Ivan Cervantes said that he's an enduro rider, like 9-time world champion, 15-time national champion, and he did it at like the best track in the world in Nordo, Italy. It's just an 8-mile circle of a high speed circle, and that's all it is. That's what it's meant for. And so just finding a track that is big enough and it allows you to go, to maintain over 100 miles an hour consistently is the real challenge in that. But he averaged like 104 miles an hour.
Is that what he averaged?
I remember
seeing, because didn't some tire company sponsor him, if I remember right?
He did it with
Pirelli or
Yamaha.
Yamaha.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. He's like a sponsored rider with them already in what he in his normal racing career. And so they gave him like a brand new bike and said, here you go.
Yeah, I remember seeing that because it was kind of a publicity stunt for the manufacturer of the bike tire, or whatever.
That you could buy this exact same bike and off the showroom floor and stuff. But yeah, I mean, he didn't use a sport bike. He used like an adventure bike, and that was limited to like 104, like 110. It was limited to 200. Yeah, it was limited to like 200 miles to 200 kilometers an hour. Or 210 or something like that. So he could only do like 105 or 110 on that. And then he was stopped for, I actually was emailing with the engineer for that project. And like, I got all of his pit stop numbers, and his shortest pit stop, his longest. And he was stopped for almost like almost 4 hours, like 3 hours and 45 minutes of the 24 hours. So
really, so it's 21 hours of driving, basically.
Right, which I mean, I've done that.
Exactly. Yeah, but I'm trying to.
So just finding a track is the hard part, because I mean, even a place like Daytona is still like, you're still looking at like 700 laps.
Yeah, it'd be a lot. I mean, and Daytona makes almost sense because with the bank, you're less threat of baking a turn, because it's made for that kind of stuff. But like I was thinking, Circuit of the Americas, I've hit 173 or 4 in the back straight, but I don't know now you have me wondering what my average speed around that track is, because it's, it's not it's one of the bigger tracks and it's a higher speed track, but the idea of riding it for 24 hours because
24 hours like that. Yeah. I looked into some of the tracks and stuff around here, and I was like Atlanta and things and like that. And I was looking at lap times. So I was like, oh, well, I would have to like average like a top 3 lap time to do it for 24 hours. So yeah, so there's very limited spots where you can do it.
Right. And I mean, like if you'd want to rent out Coda, it'd cost you a mint, I mean, even track days are pricey out there. But do you do track days much at all? Or
I've done some, yeah, here
okay,
and there. I like to get out there when I can. So there's that one, which I think is doable because he didn't do it on a sport bike and was stopped for, I think, large, and he didn't do it because it was a publicity thing. He didn't do an additional fuel cell, or he stopped he had 17 pit stops in 24 hours.
oh really?
So there's a lot of things
yeah.
so there's a lot of stuff like that. When they broke it, they changed his rear tire. He didn't have a wheel ready to go. They broke his tire down and then changed it like that. So I'm just looking at all these things. I'm like, all this could be improved. I know it's really impressive, but all these things could be improved. But I mean, but yeah, just to get an actual official Guinness, record, that would be pretty cool.
It would be. And obviously when you're doing illegal stuff like this, they're not gonna
certify it. I think 96 I think is when they stopped recognizing A to B records, or somewhere in there.
Okay, yeah, because I kind of looked at it and it was very pricey, and they almost have to witness. I don't know if you did it, but I went to I'd done a couple iron butt certifications before this, so I sent it in, and they don't necessarily validate your time, but you give them all the receipts for gas and everything, and they say we certify he did coast to coast in less than 50. I think is the coast to coast 50 run, is what they call it. And so on my plate thing, I crossed out the 50 and wrote 3310 on it, but yeah, the track work gets such a different animal, because again, for me growing up on Harleys and then with choppers just burning around Florida, and then to go to sport bikes alone was a big delta for me, just to get used to, that first Aprilia when I hit the front brakes and it stood on its nose, and I wasn't used to this, but track versus mountains, even Texas Mile, I had the swing arm extensions and lowering it and all this. And it's a lot of work. The bikes are pretty versatile, but if you really want to be great at any one thing, you got to modify it.
It's got to be optimized for that specific thing for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the other one that I was looking at that you could potentially go after without, it's probably one of the easier ones to be broken, is the fastest time to visit all 51 national parks that are in the continental U.S.
Okay.
So yeah, he did it a couple of years ago, I think, and so it's mostly just logistics and stuff, because some parks you have to have a pass and stuff to get in, and reservations and things. But yeah, I mean, it's over 51 days, I think, is the time.
That's the record?
Yeah, that's the record.
It seems really easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, and he was the very first one to do it. So
choose your own.
So I listened to some interviews. I spend 2 or 3 days in the park sometimes. I'm like, well,
that seems easy then, yeah. Because I'd heard the one about it was for a car, but it was all 50 states where they actually shipped it. They drove from Alaska down and they hit all 50. It was 4 dudes. They were on VinWiki, I think. And then I
saw that one. Yeah.
Flew it to Hawaii, I think, and just drove it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I thought, well, all 48 states would be kind of cool to do the logistics. I mean, that's a big logistics challenge, right? To figure out what's the shortest route to do that. That's a big deal too. So I did a podcast with the, Motorcycle Misfits, I think it was called, was their show out in California.
Yep.
And that was fun. And they were going through some of these strange records at the end, and they said, here's one you might do. And it was I'm trying to remember now, it was how long you could hold back 4 motorcycles. So you would have a rack, right? Where they used to put you on a rack in the old days, right? So you'd have a bike on each of your 4 limbs, pulling, spinning tires, pulling at you, and it was a time of whatever, a couple minutes or something to hold it back. And I was like, I mean, if they're little scooters, no, it wouldn't be so bad. But I'm like, well, that would be, that's something almost feasible, but it's almost comical. It's not hardly serious, but it's something that would be fun.
There's a few ridiculous ones out there, riding a mile and jumping through a hula hoop and 30 times in 1 minute or something.
Yeah, and you can make up anything. I could be I'm going to be the fastest one to drive across San Antonio with this tattoo. Okay, fine.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's also some ones out there like wow, like fastest wheelie like 230 miles an hour on a turbo booster.
Isn't that insane, dude? I did a 173 mile an hour wheelie in the hill country because I was coming over a crest, and it's the fastest I'd been out there on a bike, and I didn't realize it, but this crest was drastic enough that as I was coming up, I got over the crest, and all of a sudden my handlebars just went limp. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this isn't good. That means for sure my front wheel's not on the ground. I'm hoping my back wheel is. And you can't iron grip it or else you'll crash. And you can't let go or you'll crash. So I just kind of had to gently, and man, when it hit down, it squirreled on me. And I pulled over to check my shorts and check the computer, and it said I'd been doing 173. And I mean, I couldn't even mentally get my hand to release the throttle because and you kind of get panic mode when that happens.
Sure, yeah, just like those Isle of Man guys.
Oh, isn't that that honestly, if I had one wish for one ride I could do, I would love to go that week before. What do they call it, like Manic Week or whatever, where they just let anybody go loose. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'll ever. I'm not big on flying personally, but I will admit that if I had one trip I could do besides Isle of Man, it would be go to Germany, rent an S1000R like mine, and ride the Nürburgring. Because I didn't know this, but you can go pay like $20 and go ride the Nürburgring. You know?
Wow.
And I'm like, that's historical. I mean, that's part of automotive history, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be kind of cool, but I don't know. Take it a day at a time, right?
Yeah, right.
Awesome. Man, well, it's always good catching up with you, man. I appreciate your time here and stuff. All right. Again, thanks, Andrew. It's great talking to you, and congratulations on having had the record and joining the record books. And this is Axe again. No limits, no regrets. If you haven't before, subscribe to the channel below. Check out the YCC merch store, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Subscribe to my YouTube channel below, and let's celebrate turning fuel and air into adrenaline.